My next guest is the Executive Vice President of the National Taxpayers Union, Brandon Arnold. I admire what Representative Miller is doing there, but is it a dead letter? Is this going to go anywhere?
I think he's got a good chance. Like he said, it's going to be marked up in the Ways and Means Committee. He's the chairman of that committee, so he has something to say about this. He's going to mark that up tomorrow. And then it falls into the Speaker's hands, the Majority Leader's hands to pass it to the House. The fact that we have a bipartisan agreement on anything of substance is pretty remarkable, considering Republicans and Democrats can't agree on what day of the week it is. So the fact that we have an agreement here in place that provides things that Democrats like, an expanded child tax credit, it provides things that Republicans like, pro-growth economic policy that will encourage American companies to grow and invest and innovate. So I do think there is a chance. It's hard to be optimistic about anything on Capitol Hill these days, but I do think there's a fighting chance to get this thing to the president's desk.
When is it that the Democrats just deny that inflation is real? They keep saying it's coming down. It not growing as fast as it was before, or I like to say going from intergalactic to just stratospheric, that still millions of people, when we look at the polls, we just played a clip of Karine Jean-Pierre, complete denial. 2/3 of Americans, more than 2/3 of Americans, aren't buying the Bidenomics message because they're living in the real world. So one side is saying, hey, let's let people keep more of what they earn so they could just eat. The other side is saying, we're not cutting taxes. We'll figure out some kind of government spending program to offset that as well.
Yeah, it's hilarious. The answer to Bidenomics fatigue or Bidenomics dislike is for some reason more Bidenomics. He's going out there and actually re-embracing that term. I think he was out in North Carolina yesterday or today saying Bidenomics is great. Nobody's buying it and nobody is ever going to buy it, especially when you see that inflation remains as high as it is. Until inflation comes down, everybody's going to blame one person and one person alone, and that's really bad news for Joe Biden, who's trying to run for president right now. But, listen, at the end of the day, we're not going to see a lot of bipartisan agreements. We have a good tax package here that's actually going to help the economy. And I don't know if Biden will sign it or not, but the fact that Senator Ron Wyden, who's not even a moderate, he's pretty far to the left, is endorsing this, is a sign to me that we do have an opportunity to improve the tax code a little bit. Taxpayers haven't gotten much of any good news for the past couple of years. So I'm trying to be a little bit positive here, trying to be a little bit excited about an ounce of good news in a sea of really bad stuff.
Well, I guess if we have comprehensive immigration reform, we turn all those people into voters, the overwhelming majority of people won't be taxpayers. So who cares what the taxpayer thinks, right? Democracy. And that seems like where they're going, or they're going to pull some trick. Maybe this summer they'll lower interest rates or propose credit card debt forgiveness or some kind of rental assistance to say, hey, look, we're growing the economy. People are borrowing. It's funny. They keep talking about the consumer price index and consumer confidence. People are not running up their credit cards because they're making a big ticket purchase that they're going to pay over a few months. They're buying groceries and going into debt.
Yeah, that's right. And we're seeing default rates, particularly for lower income Americans, continue to skyrocket. That's incredibly concerning. Not only is that a ton of stress, economic and mental stress for those particular families, but that could be contagious, economically speaking, if people start defaulting en masse on credit cards, auto loans, and then the worst of all, of course, is on your mortgage. Then that could have catastrophic impacts on the economy at large, and we could be heading very quickly toward a recession. So yeah, we need to be very mindful of the fact that these lower interest rates, while they have helped with inflation, these are a double-edged sword, and they have pushed Americans who are already struggling, who are already financing their daily expenses, as you said, with credit cards, with exorbitant interest rates. They're resorting to that level of desperation. When you raise interest rates even higher, it just makes it that much more difficult for them to keep their heads above water. So it's really tough sledding out there, and the Fed absolutely needs to lower rates, but I don't think that's sufficient. Improving tax policy will help. That's probably not sufficient. We need to improve virtually every public policy area, energy, financial services, you name it, because we've been moving in the wrong direction for a couple of years now on almost everything.
You're not getting that with the Democrat Senate and, a couple of vote majority in the House of Representatives and Biden in the White House. I mean, it's going to take a major, I don't know, maybe like a general election or something. But until then, it's even going to be, you can't just say election day. You've got the transition. Then you got to, it's going to be over a year before some of this damage could even start to be undone. Thank you so much for joining us.